Look, our next speaker, Kent Bayley, he actually just said to me on the way in, that's our future right there. You know, that's our future. Give him a round of applause. Kent, here we go.
Lovely to see everybody here today. And as I look around, I see symbols of Australia. And I note the gentleman who has an umbrella built into his hat. Is that halal approved, that hat? I sincerely hope so. My wish to you today is to have a happy, peaceful Easter and to acknowledge the fact that this country is founded on Christian principles, including our laws. And no doubt there are atheists here today, and that applies to you in the terms of that's where the law comes from, and God bless you all. I want to speak for just a few minutes, and especially to those here today who have come in support of Islam. You have every right to be here. Our forefathers fought for our freedom, and the freedom you enjoy today to oppose the broader view is welcome. However, you are also going to hear the inconvenient truth, just as it was spoken 2,000 years ago by a mob who put Christ to death ultimately. We cannot be that mob. We must not fight what we don't believe in with hatred or violence, and I don't believe most people here today would do that. I note too that amongst the plethora of speakers is Bernard Gaynor, who I think follows me up. I'm the warm-up act, such as it is. And Larry Pickering, forever the larrikin. Larry recently wrote 13 articles on halal, and if you haven't read it, I suggest you do, because it's very, very insightful. Bernard Gaynor is someone you're going to hear a lot about, or more correctly, Major Bernard Gaynor, in the future. I'm convinced that he will be running in some form for federal government in the future, and a very good, honest man, if you've ever seen one. Expecting his 7th child, so he's trying to outbreed them. In terms of our testimony, as I said, I believe it must be fair and Christian-based. And the question is not whether or not we like Muslims, it's whether or not we like what they stand for, and that the book, their textbook that they follow, if that's in keeping with Australian culture and our traditions. I don't believe it is. Recently, I wrote and broadcast a narrative on halal food, but in particular the cruelty that cattle suffer when they're put to death, so that it's in keeping with halal approval. My research revealed some dreadful, dreadful things, and that is, let me explain to you how cattle go through their last minutes or seconds if it's to be halal approved. Firstly, the beast is made to face Mecca, wherever that is. South of Wollongong, I think. Anyway, it has to face Mecca. At that point, a prayer is said over it by a Muslim, and then its throat is cut with one mighty sword and one blow. Immediately after it's cut and begins to bleed horrendously, it is then reversibly stunned, and it may wake and suffer the torture that it's going through. In my view, if our grandchildren couldn't watch that, or our children, or even we, the people, then it should not happen. I hate animal cruelty with a passion. I'm sure others will speak today, but my view is that halal in particular is nothing more than a racket to raise money to fund the things that we don't like. I note too that this year Cadbury have taken from their wrappers of their chocolates any sign of the halal symbol. However, I can assure you, because I contacted them, that all their chocolate is halal approved. So why then do they hide the symbol? We all know. So it's still halal approved, and my advice is don't buy anything that's Cadbury. Just to show how stupid this whole thing is, I don't think you're aware, but Cadbury have put out this year halal Easter eggs. So I'm assuming this Christmas is going to be brought to you by halal, and Santa will be halal approved. Not on my watch, he won't. I won't be subjugated, and neither will you. About 18 months ago, I thought I'd better get off and have a look and a listen to exactly what Islam teaches. So I made an appointment with the imam, their priest, at Labrador, at the Labrador Mosque. I thought, one way or the other, I will learn. And learning is a good thing, a powerful thing. Because as I said, I don't hate the Muslims as individuals. After many months of trying, I finally got my moment and went up there to the mosque and I interviewed this man. And I tell you what, a nice bloke, a comfortable conversation, a gentleman. And he explained to me the sorts of things he did in society. And I was impressed. To say anything else to you would be a lie. Then the questions started. I had 19 pre-prepared questions. But I want to just give you the answers to 2 questions, and then I'm finished. The first was, is there equality between men and women in Islam? And he said yes, and he went on to explain why. And I said, all right then, well, when a male Muslim goes to paradise, they are given 72 virgins. Is that correct? He said, yes, it is. So if any of you ever doubted that story, there it is from the imam at the Labrador Mosque. And I said, well, if that's the case, what do the women get if there's equality? He remained silent for a long 15 seconds. And then he said, the women, if Allah is pleased with them, are named damsels in paradise. So you women, I can see now, are just hoping that you'll be a damsel in paradise one day. There's one there. If I've ever seen a damsel in paradise, madam, it's you. I said, well, okay, that's a title, but it's not 72 virgins. What do they get? And he said, well, if Allah is pleased with them, all sign of anger and jealousy is taken from them because the man has 72 virgins. This is Australia. That's the priest at Labrador, and it's wrong, and it makes me angry. I don't think any good can come of this religion worldwide, and every time I turn the TV on, there's the proof. Freedom of speech protects us. No, it doesn't. There is not one mention of freedom of speech in the Australian Constitution. Not one. And if there was ever a case for a referendum, it's that. At the next federal election, I encourage you all to write to your federal member and say, we want a referendum to enshrine freedom of speech in our Constitution. And last of all, I follow a saying when it comes to being active, like all you good folk here today that have taken time to come out, and that is this, that no single snowflake takes responsibility for the avalanche, meaning it only takes in the end the fall of one single snowflake to tip the balance and create the avalanche. And you're all snowflakes just as I am, and thank you for listening.